I'm joined by MS Now's Jack Fitzpatrick on Capitol Hill, MS Now legal affairs reporter Fallon Gallagher, and Dr. Celine Gounder, an infectious disease specialist who advised the Biden transition team on the COVID pandemic. But Jack, let's start with you. Take us through this morning's vote, what happened, and then what this means for Fauci going forward.
Yeah, it was an eventful morning in the Homeland Security Committee. This was a committee vote. Keep that in mind, and not a vote from the whole Senate. A party line vote, 8-5, Republicans prevailing to recommend that Anthony Fauci be held in contempt. Usually this would be sent to the full Senate for a vote. The chairman, though, Rand Paul, has said he is not depending on a full Senate vote. This will be referred to the Justice Department, and a vote by the full Senate is possible. This was over the objections, of Democrats who tried 5 times to delay the vote to hold him in contempt. They asked for more input from Anthony Fauci's lawyers. They asked for more access to documents that the chairman, Rand Paul, had released. All 5 of those Democratic motions were done away with along party lines. We have a reaction from Anthony Fauci's legal team saying today's resolution is a continuation of Senator Paul's personal vendetta against Dr. Fauci. It is shameful and wrong that Senator Paul is abusing his power by trying to weaponize the Justice Department against an honorable public servant. That was much the message from Democrats who said this is a vendetta between Rand Paul and Anthony Fauci, but they were not able to stop this from at least getting out of the committee. Again, there's a question as to whether the full Senate will vote on this, but Rand Paul, for now, has had his say.
Yeah, and Fauci saying on the hearing last week that he believes Senator Paul wants him behind bars. Jack, just a quick follow-up. You could say votes like this that really have nothing to do with helping the American public is the reason why Congress's approval rating is in the tank right now. It's standing at, I believe, 16%, according to the latest Gallup poll. It's right there on your screen. But why is this a priority for Republicans, especially right now?
Well, you've heard for years from Senator Paul and some other enthusiasts on the Republican side, Senator Ron Johnson, who want to keep this issue in the spotlight, whether you believe it's a vendetta, as Democrats said, against Anthony Fauci, or just something they're very, very focused on. It is something that at least a few members are not giving up on. This does give John Thune, the majority leader, a pretty difficult job. He's currently trying to negotiate a set of votes on more bread and butter issues, trying to avoid a government shutdown in October. There's a cryptocurrency bill, more legislative agenda. But of course, with a narrow Republican majority and a restive Republican majority, you see again today an example of more of a culture war focus that makes it challenging for Republican leadership to focus on gas prices, the economy, and affordability.
Fallon, I want to know more about the legality of something like this. Fauci pleading the Fifth is his constitutional right. So how can this lead to a contempt of Congress vote, especially since he was preemptively pardoned by President Biden? I mean, is something like this even enforceable?
Yeah, so first off with that pardon, that covers a very specific time frame, basically up in his conduct up until President Biden left office in early 2025. So put that aside, I want to talk about the actual conduct during that hearing, and that's what's at question in these contempt charges. There is ongoing legal dispute. This is a very thorny question about whether or not somebody can actually plead the Fifth if they've been pardoned presidentially. And the case law here is pretty thin. But there is some Supreme Court precedent, not exactly on this issue, but sort of dancing around it, that seems to suggest if you have accepted a presidential pardon, then you can't plead the Fifth because you have some sort of an immunity deal. But the Supreme Court has never actually touched this question about it with presidential pardons because immunity is technically something separate. So basically, to plead the Fifth, there needs to be a substantial and real threat that you could self-incriminate. And basically, the argument that Rand Paul is making here is that there is no substantial and real threat. Because he's been pardoned, he has that protection around him, and so he should be able to testify. Now, that is technically an unsettled question, so I want to game this out. If this goes to the Department of Justice, let's say he gets indicted, then this goes to a federal court, that question will be for a judge to decide and could work its way all the way up to the Supreme Court.
And so, Fallon, we've also learned the state of Florida is now subpoenaing Dr. Fauci. The pardon only protects him from federal prosecution, as I understand. So does he have any sort of protection at the state level, maybe?
Yeah, that's what's really key. And this state investigation that's coming out of Florida could actually present some problems for him because presidential pardons only cover conduct that happens federally or in Washington, D.C. Of course, it's not a state. So this state investigation in Florida could create some problems. At this point, we know that the Florida Attorney General has issued some subpoenas towards Fauci, that he is investigating what he's calling alleged self-dealing, saying that Fauci basically profited and benefited from his conduct during the pandemic. We also know that this investigation might not be solely happening in Florida. We know from the Florida Attorney General that there might be investigations. It's unclear if it's tandem or separate in Louisiana and West Virginia. I've reached out to both of those attorney generals for more. But right now, this Florida case could pose some serious problems for Fauci.
All right, we'll wait to see what happens there. Dr. Gounder, I want to get you into this conversation as well, because as this is all unfolding on the Hill, there are other health crises unfolding all across the country. Measles, cyclosporiasis, salmonella. So wouldn't you think Congress would believe there's bigger fish to fry out there?
You would think, although Congress has certainly played a role here in defunding some of those public health priorities. I just do want to remind people what the scientific questions are at the center of this debate regarding Dr. Fauci. So it's really about two questions. One, where did SARS-CoV-2 come from? And two, this gain of function bite. So with respect to where SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID, either it moved from animal into people or it came out of a lab. And that's a legitimate question that has yet to be settled. It probably will never be settled because the Chinese cleaned out all the animals in the Wuhan wet market on January 1st, 2020, before testing began. And the animals that we think are the most probable intermediate hosts here are raccoon dogs, civets, and bamboo rats from the wet market. They were never tested. With respect to the gain of function bite, the definition of gain of function was rewritten 6 times in 13 years, and in those years, unregulated for 8. So people are arguing over whether Dr. Fauci lied, but they're following different rule books in place at different points in time, which is partly why there's so much confusion about whether he misrepresented what was gain of function.
And Fauci has denied any wrongdoing. We still don't have a confirmed U.S. Surgeon General, as you probably know. And yesterday, though, the Senate did confirm Dr. Erica Schwartz as CDC director. She has repeatedly said that childhood vaccines are safe, that they're effective. And as a matter of fact, just this week, RFK Jr. did encourage parents to vaccinate their kids against the measles. So what do you make of this confirmation of Ms. Schwartz? And what impact will this confirmation have on the health industry? What are you hearing behind closed doors?
Well, somewhat perplexing what she said. At her hearing, she said she was unaware of several vaccine policy changes that had been made while the CDC director position was vacant. So that included the CDC autism or vaccines and autism page being edited, the delay in the hepatitis B birth dose of vaccine. So it was a bit surprising that she wasn't more aware of that. We do know the secretary intends to visit the CDC sometime later this week. And whether that has anything to do with Dr. Schwartz assuming that position, we don't know.